Two Chairs No Waiting, episode number 266, the eBullet, Volume 1, Issue 1. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at Weaver's Department Store. Drop by over at Weaver's and you will be supporting the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. That's who runs Weaver's. It's not Mr. Weaver, really. So drop by over at Weaver's Department Store and check it out. You'll find some great stuff. weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer of Two Chairs No Waiting, number 266, Jim Clark. Jim Clark. He is the man who's bringing us this issue, or this episode, because we're going to be talking about Volume 1, Issue 1 of The Bullet. Now, if you're you guys that don't know, The Bullet was the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show for a long time. I didn't even check to see how long it had been, but it was called The Bullet. The Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club had a newsletter called The Bullet. So we'll call them TAGSRWC from now on, so I don't have to keep saying that. But it was called The Bullet. Now, this issue that we're going to be talking about today, or tonight, whenever you're listening to this, is from October the 3rd. Very fitting, because that's the Andy Griffith Show's anniversary date of 1982. And I have here in my hands a copy, at least, one of the original The Bullets. This is the very first issue. Now, it's only one page. It's only one page, the front of the page and then half of the back. That was the very first issue. So I want us to have a little bit of fun, go down memory lane, read how the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club got started, because I tell you what, folks, without that club, this podcast probably wouldn't be around. I know iMayberry.com wouldn't be around. Weaver's Department Store wouldn't be online where you could buy Mayberry stuff. The calendars, all these things that we find from the Andy Griffith Show can trace all the way back to the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club being established and showing that there's a market out here for fans of the Andy Griffith Show. So, a lot of great stuff goes back to this time. And so I am going to read to you the very first issue. Now, please forgive all the names I may get incorrect, or as if I just don't read well. So let's have a little background music that sounds happy. There we go. Little background music to entertain ourselves as we read. This is The Bullet, the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. That's right, folks. This was the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. This is Volume 1, Issue 1 from October 3rd, 1982. TAGSRWC, Then and Now. This is the first newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, TAGSRWC. Our organization is dedicated to watching and promoting the Andy Griffith Show. TAGSRWC began in the fall of 1979 as a small and informal group of people who shared a love for watching the Andy Griffith Show. Founding members Lyle Ashner, Dan Auster, A-U-T-E-R, Brooke Alexander, and I, this is Jim Clark writing this article, and I would watch the Andy Griffith Show daily at the Phi Kappa Sigma Fraternity House on the Vanderbilt University campus in Nashville, Tennessee. Within a couple of years, the club, though still informal, had grown. I lost my spot because I looked down. The club, though still informal, had grown considerably, and a large crowd would gather to watch the show. Meanwhile, various people in my hometown of Greensboro, North Carolina, continued to express their interest in the show. Like the club in Nashville, the group in Greensboro would have its casual gatherings simply because its members enjoyed watching the Andy Griffith Show. For that reason, we call ourselves a Watchers Club instead of a traditional fan club. Though the club was growing steadily, it still remained relatively small and informal until early this year, when on January the 24th, 1982, An article on the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club was written by Ken Beck, an editor and writer for the Sunday Showcase section of the Nashville Tennessean. Our club had not been the same since, or has not been the same since. Ken is himself an avid fan of the Andy Griffith Show, and his article garnered enthusiastic response from TAGS watchers all over Tennessee and from a wide area of the country. The response was, in fact, so great that at Ken's suggestion, we decided to begin putting out this newsletter. For anybody who might be uninitiated in TAGS lore, the Andy Griffith Show lore, our newsletter derives its name from the bullet Barney carries in his shirt pocket. We plan to put out the bullet 2 or maybe 3 times every year. Its initial issue is serving largely as an informal or formal introduction to our club. In the future issues of the bullet, we will offer a wide variety of material. We have features on what has happened to the actors and other principals on the Andy Griffith Show since the show went out of production. We hope to have interviews, polls of members, quizzes, and other features to help our members enjoy watching the Andy Griffith Show even more. We encourage club members, to send us any material or comments they might have for the bullet. We would especially like to hear from anyone interested in establishing a TAGSRWC chapter. Those who are interested in starting a chapter need only write to our TAGSRWC address in Nashville and tell us who will be in the charter members, where the chapter will be, and what the name that they would like to have their chapter to have. As of now, the only names which have been taken, back then, the only names that had been taken are the Andy chapter for Nashville and the Barney chapter for Greensboro. Other chapter names will be reserved on a first-come basis. Then he goes on here and says rolls and rolls. It's ROLLS and ROLES. TAGSRWC is proud to have hundreds of members throughout the United States and as far as West Germany. We have no membership fees or dues. There are no obligations for our members except that they express an interest in the Andy Griffith Show. Voluntary dues of 50 cents to $1 a year will, though, be greatly appreciated to help cover some of the costs for the bullet and other correspondences. It's awesome. We want as well to encourage you to promote the airing of the Andy Griffith Show in your community. Since we are primarily a watchers club, we need to make sure that we continue to have the show on the air to watch. If you do not get the Andy Griffith Show in your area, you might try writing your local station and let them know how much you miss seeing the show. A lot of times, a station will have the rights to air the Andy Griffith Show in a particular marketing area, but for some reason or another, it'll choose not to air it. In such cases, letters expressing a strong desire to see the show have proved effective. Also, if you will let us know at the Andy chapter, we will write an additional letter on behalf of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. It is likewise a good idea to write those stations which are airing the Andy Griffith Show and let them know that you appreciate their doing it. WTBS in Atlanta has been particularly faithful in airing the Andy Griffith Show, and with its satellite cable network, it is able to reach viewers all over the country. WZTV, our flagship station here in Nashville, and WFMY TV in Greensboro have also been very strong stations, as have WRAL in Raleigh and WGN in Chicago. Wow, those are some stations you've heard before, isn't it? I would like, in closing, this is a closing note, I would like finally to acknowledge the contributions of some of our members who have been a great help in establishing the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club and providing for its continued prosperity. In addition to my co-founders already mentioned at the beginning of this article, Ken Beck deserves mention again for his dedication to the Andy Griffith Show and for giving the TAGSRWC some timely publicity. Jay Lipscomb, Tom Hotchkiss, Tim Higgins, and Jeff Rudner have been especially active. Bobby Shockley, Tim Guyton, Jimbo Lord, Jeff Beckham, Victor and Kim Miller, Dick Game, John Cadasta, and S. Brooks Shell have also been stabilizing forces in the development of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club and an establishment of the Andy chapter. Honorary member Jeff Jacobson also merits mention for his contribution to public relations for the Andy chapter. The Barney chapter recognizes the services of Blake and Nancy Clark, my parents. Remember, this is Jim Clark's parents. Ann Clark, Jim's sister. Tanya Hamill, Jim's grandmother. John and Bambi Woods, and John E. Faulkner III. We would also like to welcome our newest honorary members, Governor Jim Hunt of North Carolina and the musical group, the Oak Ridge Boys. We are indeed honored. So, gentlemen and ladies, that was the very first issue of the eBullet. The entire issue. I just read it to you. This is a historical document in my mind. Should be treated much like the Magna Carta or, the Emancipation Proclamation. Should be handled in the same way because, that's that document they wrote when people need to be emancipated, if y'all didn't remember that. But this is the bullet that goes in Barney's pocket. And so, of course, now today, at this current time in 2014, in January, we have the eBullet, which is the electronic version of this same newsletter. And Jim Clark has been making these issues for going on, 34 years. So he's been doing it for 33, and October of this year will be 34 years of the bullet. So, or the eBullet, or one of its incarnations. And so we want to thank Jim for all the amazing and hard work he's done to keep the Andy Griffith Show going and to just help the fans of the Andy Griffith Show enjoy themselves. So, Jim, thank you so much. And, we just can't, again, thank you enough. All right, so we're going to run into this one other thing I wanted to tell you about tonight. This is a fun thing, I hope, for all you guys. Here's what happened to me. I came home from work a few days ago, and as I walked in the door, my wife, nobody was here, so I came in. I actually came home early because I didn't feel well that day. So I came in and sat down. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Time, here in Alabama. And so I came in and sat down and just reached over, grabbed the remote control, turned on the TV, just sitting in my recliner, trying to relax. So, I'm the TV came on, and it's on the game show channel because Jan enjoys watching the game show channel. So what, to my wondering eyes, should appear was this guy on television, had, balding on the top and hair. Yeah, I thought, wow, that guy. Of course, I'm looking at it through my semi-closed eyes because I wasn't feeling well. But as I watched this show, I kept looking at this guy, saw him first from a distance, and thought, wow, that looks like George Lindsey Jr. And as I kept watching, they got a closer shot on him, and I realized he had a name tag. It is George Lindsey Jr. What is this? I'm watching the game show channel, and I'm going, what is this show? I don't even have any idea what the show is. But sure enough, there's George, and his playing partner here was named Lana, and they were playing on the show Shop Till You Drop. George Lindsey Jr. was the contestant up against another team, and I was just amazed that I was seeing George Jr., who I've met several times, doing these Mayberry events. But there he was, big as life, right there on the screen, competing on Shop Till You Drop. So, we're always talking about little Mayberry things that happened to us throughout the week and throughout the day. Well, folks, that was one for me because I saw George running around on the stage. I've never seen Shop Till You Drop, and I wouldn't have kept watching it if the TV had not been on that channel serendipitously, by chance. So there he was running around on the stage, swapping out things that they were trying to sell, trying to get some particular dollar amount that they had to get to win the contest. And so George and Lana, there they were. Turns out, as I continued to watch, they actually did win the contest and came out and won a trip to the Bahamas. So that was just a really cool event for me to have just a little Mayberry thing. Of course, I thought this must have happened. This must be an old show. What's George doing on this show? Turns out, no, this is a recent one because a few days later, the eBullet came out. And speaking of the eBullet came out and mentioned that George had been on Shop Till You Drop. Wow. How fortunate was I to have been, I say fortunate. I didn't feel good. I came home early from work, turned on the TV. It was on the Game Show Network. I'm going, why has Jan got this on the Game Show Network? What's she watching? And it comes on. The first thing I see, as I said, was a long shot of George from a distance, and I barely could see him. I could see a guy standing there. I thought, boy, that guy looks like George Lindsay. That looks like him. And then it zoomed in a little closer, and I was like, well, it does say George on his name tag. And it wasn't until another shot when I was like, that is George. That's him. It's great. So I had been feeling bad, didn't feel good. And I tell you what, that lifted my spirits. Just seeing one of my Mayberry friends who's been with us at Mayberry Days and other locations, over the years, it's just great to see. Now, granted, he wasn't on the Andy Griffith Show, but he is Goober's son, George Lindsay Jr. So, folks, I hope you enjoy that little story. I know it was great for me. I tell you what, I would love to hear from you. We've been having some of these lately where people have called in, or not called in, but written in on the Who's Been Messing Up the Bulletin Board Digest, the newsletter, a daily digest version. It's not a newsletter, really. It's a daily email that goes out to people who are members of the Who's Been Messing Up the Bulletin Board chapter. And there's been people on there talking about brushes with greatness, or meeting someone, or just seeing them on a television show even, that are alumni of the Andy Griffith Show. So if you have a story like that where you ran across somebody, you're out somewhere and saw them just by chance, or you've heard a story like that, I'd love to hear from that. I'd love for you to call in and give that story. So if you'll call me at 888-684-8415 and leave your story there. You can write me, but it would be really nice to hear it in your own voice. A story about meeting a cast member just kind of unexpectedly. Not necessarily that you were at a Mayberry event. Not necessarily. It could be that you were there and you just happened to be staying in the same hotel and didn't know it or something. But just maybe you were somewhere and stumbled across somebody that had been on the Andy Griffith Show or was associated in some way with the show. Because I have another story. I probably got time. No, I'll save it for another time, because I met a lady just a few days ago when I was at Home Depot. I was waiting on something, and somebody, I'll go ahead and tell it, I guess. I was at Home Depot, and these are the kind of stories you could tell. I was at Home Depot the other day getting some plumbing supplies, because I was having to work on some leaks we had here at the house. And I'm standing there kind of looking down the aisles. You know how they are at Home Depot. There's got all kinds of stuff. Where is the caulk? So I was kind of looking at the signs along each end of the row, trying to read the sign. And this lady that was at the counter, the checkout counter, said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, No, I'm just looking for some caulk. And she said, "Are you Alan Newsom?" And I turned and looked, and I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, hey, I'm on the digest. I get the daily digest of the Who's Been Messing Up the Bulletin Board." And yeah, I don't know if you knew me or anything. I was just in shock because nobody ever recognizes me out anywhere like that. So it was pretty funny for me that she had, even seen me, but she recognized me with a beard because I currently have a beard. But her name's Sandra, and she was saying, "Yeah, I thought that was you, and I saw you." So anyway, so we started talking about the Andy Griffith Show. I had some plumbing problems, so that's never good, right? But it turned out to be a great day for me because now she wasn't on the Andy Griffith Show, but she's associated with it with me on the Who's Been Messing Up the Bulletin Board Digest. And it was a great pleasure of mine to actually get to meet her because I'd never met her. And she lives nearby Huntsville and actually works at Home Depot. I didn't know that. So anyway, if you have a story like that and how it may have made your day when you met them, I'd love to hear that. And I know other fans would too, because we're all in this manhunt together. So give me a call at 888-684-8415 and leave a message and tell your story because we would like to hear it. You can email me, as I said, at floyd@imayberry.com, and we'll get the story that way. Or you can drop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/2chairs, or go by twocairsnowaiting.com and leave a comment there if you'd like to. But I would love to hear your stories, and I'd love to be able to share them with everybody that listens. Well, folks, go out there and have a great Mayberry week, and hopefully you'll run across somebody that's a big fan too. So until next time, y'all have a wonderful time, wonderful week, and I hope Mayberry shines on you bright. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.